Let the record show that the regular Riverview City Council meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. on December 5th, 2022. Will the clerk please take roll?
Councilmember Blanchett.
Here.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Here.
Councilmember Norton.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
Mayor Swift.
Here.
Councilmember Workman.
Here. Tonight we have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Cub Scouts from Riverview Pack 1659, invocation by Councilmember Blanchett. Will you please rise and the Scouts come up front. Whenever you guys are ready. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we pray? Dear Lord, please help guide our deliberations so that we may have the strength to do what is right, the courage to oppose wrong, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let us unite to consider the legislative needs of all our citizens, regardless of race, religion, gender, or nationalities, in a fair and concerned manner. In His name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, just so everybody knows, those are Cub Scouts from Riverview Pack 1659 as part of their citizenship patch or pin. I interviewed them, or they interviewed me before the meeting, which is always, this guy's asked the toughest questions. But one thing I will point out is, I think those three they're the new members of the local officers compensation committee. Because they asked me how much I make, and as a good politician, I turned it around and asked them how much do they think I make. And the lowest was $40,000 a year. So starting next year, you guys are going to be on the local officers compensation committee. There you go. Thank you guys, and great job doing the pledge. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen. Jeff, any announcements?
Yes, Your Honor, we have a couple announcements. Todd Dickman in Recreation.
Yes, just wanted to let everyone know that we will have judges out this week on the next 3 nights, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, for our home holiday decorating contest that the city puts on every year. I think it's about 28 years now that we've been doing it. Houses do not need to register. It's just if you have decorated your house, the judges will go out and view all the houses in the city and then make their decisions, and we will let people know by signs in their front yard and letters and invite them to the second council meeting in December for the award, I guess, and so they can be recognized. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Mike Kettler with the Riverview Highlands.
Just a reminder to all the golfers out there, just because the weather's turned cold doesn't mean we're closed. We have our indoor facility is in full swing right now. We have lessons from our golf instructor, Ken Moore, who's been in the business over 40 years. We have all the greatest technology. So don't be afraid to keep that swing going all year round.
Thanks, Mike. Is that it?
That's it, Your Honor.
I do have one announcement. I would ask that you keep in your prayers Mr. Don Matt. He's a longtime Riverview Kiwanis. He's the one who actually recruited me many, many years ago to be part of the Kiwanis. He just needs some prayers, so kind of keep him in your thoughts and prayers. With that, we have no awards and presentations. Next is the approval of the minutes. Approve the minutes of the 11/21/22 regular Riverview City Council meeting and the condensed version for publication. What's council's pleasure?
So moved.
Support. Motion by Councilwoman Ganaga, supported by Councilman Norton. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Tonight we have no public hearings. Now is the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the mayor and council, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes. There is no sharing of time and no rebuttals, and please be respectful. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dino Papadopoulos. I just came in after just a few points. I think they're more technical this time in nature regarding cannabis sales. And one of them, I'll start with Councilman Robbins. When you talked about the bans being tacky, I think Councilman Norton said there might be Bob Marley signs and things of that nature. And this is the only time I'm not being technical, a little more subjective, but think of the hypocrisy when you talk about that. I know Mr. Hatzel, which Councilman Norton should know, we don't call him JJ. Mr. Hatzel had concerns that the kids would be walking home safely. And I just kind of perused a little bit, and I actually drew it out here. Down the street from the high school are 2 doors that are all beer signs. To the left of it is Miller Lite that says, "Thank you for shopping." To the right of it is another beer sign. They're taller than me and you. All of that stuff is really tacky. You know, it's just, that's what life is. It's very tacky. There's so many buildings that are horribly tacky. If you have a porch where you're drinking beer on 4th Street, that might be seen as tacky. Beer tents, anywhere they are sometimes. So the kids are walking home, they're okay. Keep in mind, if they are walking in the part of Riverview that you're talking about, 4th Street and whatever the kids are doing there, they just walk by GameStop with the Tobacco Town or whichever new one is there, right there for them. And one of the I believe Councilwoman Blanchette mentioned to the citizens one time that they should go and try it out. It had a smoking lounge. You know, I didn't go crazy and say, my goodness, the kids are going to see that, you know. Because on the business side, if you're going 45 miles an hour, and as you said it, I think, so the kids don't know what the building does, that's not a very good business. You're going 45 miles an hour, you need to see what that business does. I don't think a kid coming home says, Mom, I saw what this business does. It sells marijuana. And the mom says, well, did you go in there? No, I'm not allowed to. I just walked away, but you know, I'm traumatized. I know that it sells marijuana. She says, what did you do to the kid? And the kid says, I went to the liquor store. They have cheap candy over there. You see, candy and liquor have always gone hand in hand in criminology. It's something that you have to study and see, why are these places even made that way? Why are the 2 pharmacies that we have, candy and OxyContin? Why are those 2 things always there? Snacks and the liquor, snacks and that. So when you look at that, I hate to keep bringing in the world, but that's the world I grew up in. The liquor was everywhere, like I said the last time. The other thing about the zoning is, I don't know that 300 feet kind of is a good way to just summarize the entire city. You have some houses that are literally behind Coney Islands with, you know, like Savvy Sliders came in. That's a great new business, but the people there smell fried onions now. I drive down Williamsburg, of course, but I don't complain about that. Savvy Sliders is great. As far as the kids, did Savvy Sliders help the kids that are crossing from Longsdorf onto Williamsburg? It did not. There's already a false light there. The kids wait for that light when they're coming to Williamsburg, and when the light clears, they still can't walk. That turnaround still got to clear a bunch of cars, and you guys just put Savvy Sliders right there. Then you decided with your Savvy Sliders drive-through, switch them. And there's no one in the world that thinks that first driveway has cars coming out of it. But I don't complain about that stuff. That's how life works. I just kind of laugh about things when I see them. So don't worry about the kids. They're going to be okay if they go home and there's a building they cannot legally enter. They'll be all right. They have to survive all the other stuff. Candy and liquor, candy and OxyContin. If you know the people that go to parking lots where OxyContin is, like I do, then you'd understand why I'm putting those 2 together. Why are the same customers looking for candy in there with the customer on Wednesday at noon getting a case of beer? It's just never statistically going to work out for the kid. And the closest thing to the high school is that candy liquor store. And the one next to that, well, that one gets robbed about as much as kids go in to try to get liquor. Then if you go down a little bit further, I call it the Dairy Robbie Mart. That place has been robbed more times than anybody knows. So the kids are already facing alcohol. They're already facing real danger, not something they can't even walk into, you know. So I wanted to hit on that. And then with the zoning, back to the houses, there are houses behind gas stations. There are houses behind the Parthenon. So you have to start thinking in legal terms of, can you just say 300 feet? I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can say to someone on the Jefferson side, don't worry, this is all going to be okay. I mean, do you know what kind of industry is on that side, what people live next to? Some of the cancer accusations and things going on over there, those people have dealt with a lot more than a building that doesn't spew anything but smell. So it doesn't manufacture anything, it doesn't make chemicals, you know, anything like that. I think one of the other things besides the worrying about the kids
Mr.
is,
Papadopoulos, could you wrap it up? You're at 5 minutes.
Sure. There's a Bob Marley sign right outside that store that I just mentioned. There's a peace sign by it. I think it says peace, love. Is it okay that it sells tacos and says that, Councilman Norton? Because this Bob Marley fascination you have, they're going to have some tacky pictures on them. That's just how it goes. But if you look in Monroe, they look like car dealerships. So.
Okay, thank you.
I hope this was helpful, and Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say, I was pleased with how everyone is talking about this and working it out, and you have your strategy and you have yours. If you guys don't know it from my end, it's looked very professional, and I hope this all works out. We're certainly not saying
Thank you.
do or die on any side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Moss. I live at 18207 Valade. A few things came to my mind today, one of which occurred last week when I thought it was an Iranian American, but turned out to be an Iranian, who got a bullet in his head at the World Cup because he celebrated the U.S.'s victory over Iran, which actually advanced us to the knockout stage. Fortunately, we got eliminated by the Netherlands on Saturday, but the point being is it made me think about how too frequently and too often, and we're all guilty of this, we forget about our freedoms and our liberties. Certainly, Qatar is a much different culture, and they come under controversy. And I couldn't understand why, but once this happened, with some of the stuff that's happened in the World Cup, it was very sad to me. With that having been said, I have a couple of questions that pertain to parking in the city. First of all, is there anything in the city ordinance, and I've run this by Chief Allen and got no response from him, about a vehicle with two wheels being in the driveway and the other two being in the street at the same time? And then secondly, one car in front of another being parked in front of the same house at the same time. For example, Dan Calipori, when I left, actually had two vehicles parked in front of his house at the same time, which I assume because he knew I was going to come to this meeting tonight, and he thinks I'm such a comical person, that he was going to make it as difficult for me, which he and Mr. Carey and Ms. Orly Barton have done for pretty much the entire time I've lived in Riverview. I'm referring specifically to what everybody until today had said, except for Mr. Dobek, Councilmember Robbins, and Councilmember Gunago, who I sent today. The email that I sent in January of last year where I stated this and stated what I would do to egress my house if no law was passed, which none was, didn't even get so much as a response from any of you at that time. It is sick, it is sad, but it seems like to me this city wants to condone the wrongful actions of people like that, which I thoroughly don't understand. But as such, more importantly to me is what happened on Friday when Mr. Calipori, because apparently he thinks I'm such a comical person, decided to rush up to me just about while I was loading things to and from my vehicle. And normally I wouldn't mention anything like this because...
And just, I'll just remind you, Mr. Maz, that these meetings are being recorded, so if you say things about a neighbor, and I would recommend not mentioning by name, but if you want, just be aware that this is being recorded.
I'm well aware of that. That's exactly why I'm doing this, because it is being recorded. Thank you for that. And I love watching the recordings of myself as well. Not narcissistic, but I do. It's good practice for me. Anyway, as I was saying before that, he decided to come rushing up to me on my porch while I was getting ready for an event in which I was collecting toys for needy children who might not have a Christmas if they didn't get them. And I ended up having to call the police because he practically tried to start a fight with me over this, which he hadn't before because he's usually too busy hiding behind his wife, frankly, being the man that he is. But in any event, what sickens and saddens me is the way it was handled. Prior to that, over Thanksgiving weekend, I had sent 3 pictures, the same 3 pictures I sent to all of you, to Chief Allen. And I remember ending my comments telling him how very disappointed I am with him, which I am. But you know what, Chief Allen, you're not the first chief I'm disappointed with. I was disappointed in your predecessors for different reasons as well. So if you think your department's doing such a great job, I don't. But needless to say, I don't accept any of this with Dan Calipori. We need a law that's passed that's fair to everybody. If there is an inequity going on, then so be it. And in closing, I will say this. If you do want to treat the people differently, fine, treat them differently. But I'm not going to be treated less than, because nobody is above the law, and I'm not below it either. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll keep it really short. Brian Webb, 20271 Maplewood. Just want to let the community know that the Riverview Community Neighborhood Watch will be having our annual pizza party and Christmas caroling December 11th. It's a great time. We've been doing it now since about 2014. Several families come out, so it's a good chance to have some communal meals and go out and spread some holiday cheer. If you're on Facebook and like to attend, if you're a member of a group, please RSVP with the number of people attending. And if you're not, you're still encouraged to join us. And if you're not on Facebook, you can just call 479-0431 and RSVP. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Mr. Mayor,
Chuck, Councilman Norton.
Mr. Webb, I didn't hear the time on the 11th.
Thank you, Councilman Norton. It'll be from 4:30 p.m. till 7:30
Thank you, sir.
on the 11th. We'll be, I have to clarify it with Doug still, or sorry, Todd, that we'll be meeting here at the Seniors Activity Center and then going out to one of the local streets for the caroling.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have no organizational business tonight. Is there any item council wants removed from the consent agenda? 9.1, approve the renewal of the video service local franchise agreement for WOW. 9.2, approve budget amendment 9.2. But before we do that, I do have a question. I think this would be Jeff. These special event sponsorships, the $14,950, just remind me what that is.
Your Honor, I believe that are the donation sponsorships received for the Winterfest. My guess is it's the combination of all. Todd, is that correct? Yeah.
So the tree lighting and the mayor's gala? Thank you. What's council's pleasure?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Norton, supported by
Support.
Councilwoman Ganaga. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
11.1, award bid and authorize execution of agreement for the repair of the fueling station at the DPW building with R.W. Mercer Company in the amount of $176,822, plus a 10% contingency in the amount of $17,682.20, for a total of $194,504.20. What's council's pleasure?
So moved, Your Honor.
Motion by Councilwoman Blanchett, supported by
Support.
Councilwoman O'Neill. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
11.2, consider waiving purchasing manual section 8, ethics to allow attendance at a Christmas party hosted by Riverview Towing on 12/9/22. What's council's pleasure?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman O'Neill, supported by Councilman Ganaga. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Thank you, Ron. 12.1, authorize first reading by title only of proposed ordinance number 737, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances for the City of Riverview by the repeal of Article 14, prohibition of marijuana businesses and establishments, of Chapter 14, businesses, and the adoption of the new Article 14, cannabis businesses, to provide for the licensing and regulation by the city of certain adult use cannabis. What's council's pleasure?
Support that, Mr. Mayor.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Motion by
Sorry.
Councilman Norton, supported by
Support.
Councilwoman O'Neill. Any discussion?
Your Honor?
Councilwoman Blanchett.
Yes, please refresh our memory. What happens if we don't have an ordinance on the books pertaining to marijuana?
Well, the easy answer would be the cannabis would not be allowed to be sold in the city. Correct? I mean, don't we need an ordinance first, city attorney? Okay.
Does this ordinance somehow control the cannabis industry in Riverview?
That would be
Does it control the industry?
In Riverview?
Yes. Well, along with the state has the main control, but we have an ordinance with terms and conditions that the city can impose. That'll be a regulation that the city will put forth.
Okay, these regulations that,
oh, okay, all right.
these regulations, are they more enhanced than the state regulations? Do we have stiffer control with this?
I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. Can't do it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. Mr. Papadopoulos, please. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
City attorney.
The state regulates this through the Cannabis Regulatory Agency. They've got certain rules. They've got a lot of rules. This is what's left that the city can do. And we can opt in. Presently, the ordinance that we have here already prohibits it. So we're removing the prohibition and putting this ordinance in place with the terms and conditions that we have the ability to regulate that's left to us by the state.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Then I do have a statement to make. I've been told by those much wiser than me to pick my battles. Don't fight the ones you can't win. Well, I'm opposing this one even though I know there is no way I'm going to be successful, similar to the landfill expansion hearing. For years, I've made decisions based on input I've received from those who elected me. I felt it was my responsibility, and that was where we were elected to do, to make those decisions. When it comes to high-profile issues, some council people disagreed. When it comes to high-profile controversial issues, and this one is definitely controversial, that affect the community, they insisted the residents vote on it. We did try to get the landfill issue on the ballot, and of course, as always, the county rejected it. So we published a survey, an attempt to get input from the public. We were criticized profusely for not putting it on the ballot. What's the hurry was the question of the day. Council voted to implement a small portion of the already authorized millage for trash collection. Then council voted to start a curbside recycling program to help satisfy the Wayne County to get them to approve our landfill expansion request. Again, some council members voted no because these are items that the residents should vote on. Again, the question of the day was, what's the hurry? At the time, I totally disagreed. So while putting it mildly, I was tarred and feathered, and I was called King Swift. The millage was referred to as the Swift tax increase, and I was accused of getting my way, and I didn't want or care what the residents wanted. Never mind, 3 other council people supported it. So being at least a partially intelligent person, I've learned my lesson. On the cannabis ordinance, I absolutely believe this is something the residents should vote on. I guess the question today can still be, what's the hurry? So to prevent all the drama again, and we're going to go through it, I suggest that in a way we don't get accused of any backdoor deals. The mayor always gets his way. Put it on the ballot. As a matter of fact, our favorite Riverview Discussion Board Facebook administrator said, Swift will never let the people vote on this because he doesn't want it. And as always, she's wrong. So the new question of the day is, why don't we want the residents to vote on this ordinance? Yes, it's true that Riverview voted for the sale of recreational marijuana a few years ago. But what they didn't do was vote on the sale of recreational marijuana in the city. There was a similar argument about the landfill expansion. There were council members that insisted residents vote on the expansion in spite of previously approval from the voters for the landfill. So all I'm asking for is that we be consistent and avoid any accusations of impropriety. I feel the same is true about the cannabis issue. In reviewing the minutes of the October 6th of the Cannabis Committee, I did see there was very little to no public comment. In our discussion at a study session, Councilman Ganaga even stated there were no members of the public other than Councilman Robbins and someone from the industry at the meetings, which leads to the question, did the committee do any public promotion other than the standard postings for the meeting that took place? I would suggest that we at least have a public hearing on the subject before moving forward. So I'll just cut right to the chase why I'm going to vote no on the first and second readings of the cannabis ordinance. From the feedback I received, the committee meetings were just a formality and the decision to adopt an ordinance in support of the sale of cannabis was just going to happen. According to Facebook, the former owner of Slip Mahoney's has sold his building and said months ago it's going to be a dispensary. I have major concerns when someone would spend that amount of money on a building he didn't even know if we get the approval or not. So just like recycling, the millage, and the landfill expansion, what's the hurry? Why not let residents vote on the issue? Are there council members or staff aware of, I just some questions, I guess. Are there council members or staff aware of any other offerings of purchase of property on 4th Street other than Slip Mahoney's, Tubby's, Chicken Shack, former Denny's property, outlots near Burger King? And this is rhetorical questions at this point, but a question for the city attorney. Can the 300-foot requirement be challenged in court? Do we anticipate lawsuits from dispensaries that haven't participated in the development of the ordinance? If so, what impact would that have on our attorney fees and insurance rates, in MMR and WAVE, for example? Will this ordinance require something other than a normal business license application, one specifically for cannabis? Do we have that yet? As I said this before, and I'll say it again, I'm personally neutral, and actually even mildly supportive of the ordinance, and I think our city attorney's office did an awesome job on this. Is an ordinance that will be held up as an example for future municipalities voting on it. But I'm not looking forward to being personally attacked again for not letting the residents vote on it. So I'll just finish with this. Next year, if I decide to run for re-election, I'll be able to say that I supported giving this voice to this people instead of being accused of not letting the people speak. So I'm sure there's going to be a response. So anybody else wants to add anything?
Your Honor.
Councilman Robbins.
Addressing the Headley vote that we had, I can only speak for myself, but I was not in support of that simply because we have never paid for trash, ever. It's always been a perk. And if it were any other millage, it may have been different. And though I do agree, and I have even said, you know, hey, let the people decide, let the people decide, I truly feel that the financial landscape of our city has dramatically changed since we lost our landfill expansion. Things are completely different now. We have correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but that expansion was supposed to cover between 10 and 13 millage points.
I'll just add to that
roughly.
Before you answer that, Jeff, and you can. And you're making my point. There were council members that insisted that we voted on the landfill expansion. Now, if we got that, let's just say it's roughly $3 million a year profit. For the next 10 to 15 years, you're talking $30 to $45 million that the council insisted that we voted on. So you equate that to this, and obviously this would be a good number. This would be a good start, we'll just say, when these businesses open up. But I just think the way we need to go about it is so we don't have to go through all the other rhetoric that we went through before that we allow the people to vote. So Jeff, do you have an answer on what it means as far as income?
Yes, Your Honor. To Councilman Robbins, that is correct. It could be as high as 11 mills. That's exactly what could be transferred. That's not what's currently being transferred, but it could be as much as 11 mills.
Okay. Now, with that being said, we are at a point where now we're having to make up as much as 11 mills. Now, for those of you who don't know, a mill in Riverview is approximately $333,000, correct? I did it at 13, so it's obviously 66 less. But it would be just under $3 million in millage, period. And if we put it on a ballot, which I completely get, the clock is ticking. That thing is closing, okay? So
That thing is closing, and it's closed, I'm not, sorry to interrupt, Councilman Robbins, but just so people understand, the same argument was that we got 10 years to find that replacement. And I do understand we need to start immediately, but it comes down to, I believe there's a place for the dispensaries in the city. I get that. It's just my impression or my opinion is, and it's just mine, I got it's just one of 7 here, is that it should be voted on by the people. It's all the other arguments they're valid, but I'm just saying, how do we get there? And that's my concern.
in Your Honor, I respectfully, accept that decision from you. If it's about who's going to take the brunt of it, give me a call if you have a problem, because we got to make money. We got to make money fast. And I'm sorry, just like the people who are in support of this type of thing, my vote is going also for those who oppose it, because they're the ones that are going to see the difference on the tax reel. And if this goes through, it's essentially one thing off the plate. Now we're looking at 10 more great ideas that we got to come up with. That's just my stance on it.
Anybody else?
Your Honor,
Councilman Workman.
I've never minced any words. I'm totally against recreational marijuana. I have always been. I get accused of being against marijuana. I've never been against medical marijuana. I'm against recreational. I don't think it was thoroughly thought through. I think it gives an image to our city that I'm not really happy with. I've been approached, as you have, and usually people seek the people that have like minds. And many of them don't want to come here because they feel it's a cancel culture, and if they come here, they're going to get the crap beat out of them by the other side. And many of them are the elderly down on the east side where I'm at. So we speak for them. I'm in agreement with you. I think they should have a voice. They should be able to vote on this. You weren't the only one that was accused of pushing this through. I was the other side that was accused. I'll most likely get beat up on Facebook because I said I'm against recreational marijuana, and there'll be about 5 people standing up here saying how incompetent and old and ignorant and uninformed. I think that's what I heard twice now. So I've been silent on most of this. The cancel culture is working well on me. I'm just going to say no. So I will be making a motion that it goes to a vote. They can vote down the motion, and you and I can say, we voted one way or another. I think you'll have to, or another person will have to second it, because it won't get second. So that's where I'm at.
Anybody else?
Your Honor.
Councilman Robbins.
Just real quick. That's a great point, Councilman Workman, about the mass majority. We have a lot of senior citizens in our city, on our side of Fort Street, on fixed incomes, mind you. 11 mills is a whole lot of increase. That's why my decision is what my vote's going to be, because I think we're both looking at that demographic. We're just looking at it in a slightly different light, which is perfectly okay. 11 mills is unfathomable in my mind.
So just so everybody's clear, if this doesn't pass, your taxes aren't going up 11 mils. I want to make that clear now. So anybody else?
Yeah, Your Honor, sorry.
Councilwoman Blanchett.
Yes, we're skirting the issue of our police department. How prepared are we? I mean, we've got people talking. It's coming in. There's properties biting at the bit to sell. How, I guess, to Chief, through the chair, how prepared are you to handle an influx of recreational marijuana, et cetera? What would the force be doing differently?
The
There wouldn't be much we would be doing differently. The state regulates it through a state license. So we would periodically go in there and just make sure that they're following up with the regulations that they have to do through the state. And before they go into business, they have to send a site plan to my office, and it has to be approved about security measures.
A site plan?
Yeah, security plan.
Oh, security plan. So it's going to be status quo on business on the streets as far as our officers are concerned? I mean, how do you spot someone who's been drinking or someone who's been smoking?
Well, it doesn't matter. It could be somebody taking pills, somebody smoking, somebody drinking. It's the same enforcement. We see them then driving. They could be driving too slow, then speeding up too fast, going over the line, just things we look for. Could be a simple thing as going through a red light, then we figure out that they're intoxicated.
Thank you.
I'll just add to that, Chief, that I'm super confident our police department can handle whatever the rules are in this ordinance. They will enforce them. I know they'll do a great job doing that. But my issue is the people should vote on it as opposed to council just implementing it. That's what it comes down to. I mean, that's the gist of my issue, and it's just mine.
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Ganaga.
I would just like to say everyone up here has done a really good job of discussing this together. There is some very yays and very nays, and in the past, things have not gone as smoothly as they have. So kudos to every single person up here, and I respect every decision, and you guys are very passionate. We all are about many things. So what's best for the city is what we're all focusing on right now. And I think we all have the same plans in mind. It's just how we get there is a little different. So I'm excited to work forward to reaching our goal. We may not all agree, but we're all going to get there in the end. And I would like to clarify the statement that you quoted me on. And with only one person in the audience being Mr. Robbins and the other being someone that was part of a dispensary. That was towards the beginning of the meetings. By the last one, we were so full that we had to bring in extra benches. Just so you know, there was a lot of outreach. I am seen as a swing vote. I was also on the persecuted end of going for that millage. So I did get that persecution. I did get yelled at for that. And I will continue to vote the way that most people reach out to me and the way I feel is best for the city to move forward. So, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
Your Honor,
Councilman Norton.
I respect your opinion. I think what you read clarified your opinion very well. As you stated at our last study session when we talked about this before it was put on the agenda, that I think what you said was we have a very large population of senior voters. And unfortunately, in the city of Riverview, when we have an election, we only have about 10% of the population. Am I wrong on that number?
It's probably close.
Okay. So going back to 2018 for Proposal 18, which was the recreational marijuana, it was voted in by 625 votes for yes. Now, I know what you're saying, but if we go back and we look at individual elections, that was that group because they vote the most. So I respect your opinion. I'm very proud of the committee and how hard the committee worked. We followed the Open Meetings Act to make sure that it was posted online and in City Hall, that anybody could attend that wanted to. I can only speak for myself, but I think Councilmember Ganaga and Councilmember O'Neill received the same 4 emails that I did from people saying that they were not in favor of that, but I only received 4 emails. So I respect your opinion, but I would like to go ahead and move on with this first reading.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Norton. Just one last thing, too, is I'll echo what Councilman Workman is. And I mentioned this to Councilman Norton, too, that it's pretty clear to me we hang with different groups. So I don't know if I'm with the elderly, But the feedback I've got from most of the residents I've talked to, not that I've sought them out, they've sought me out, and also the feedback I've got, and I said I would not bring them in by name, and it wouldn't be fair to them, several businesses and other community members who, like I said, they don't want to be part of the cancel culture, just weren't in support of it. But again, it just comes down to, do we take the action or does council take the action? And that's what we're here to decide. And that's, if we're ready for a roll, then we'll let the roll call go where it may.
Mr. Mayor.
And I'll support whatever council decides.
Mr. Mayor,
at some
can I
point.
make a comment about the circles that we?
Yes, sir.
I'm very proud of the people that I consider friends and the residents that I know personally. And with that being said, I think the people in my circle are very intelligent, because I originally wasn't for this. I changed my opinion, but it was through education that made me change my opinion.
And I wouldn't think the people I discuss with are not intelligent either, so.
I'm not saying that. I just don't want you to think that I'm running the streets with a bunch of criminals.
I hang with you too, so I don't want to be part of that. I was remiss, and I do need to thank Councilman Norton, Councilwoman O'Neill, and Councilwoman Ganaga for the work they did on the ordinance. There was a lot of input, and again, our city attorney's office did an awesome job, I think, on the ordinance itself. But I have talked to members of the committee who obviously was the ones, the dissenting votes. So you guys know who those are, so I don't need to mention them by name. But they had concerns. So I think with the end of our discussion, I will ask for a roll call. I know that was a long way to get to the roll, right?
Voting on the vote or
Mayor Swift.
Wait.
I want to clarify.
Hold on.
ordinance or the vote?
We're voting on the first reading.
Okay, I didn't know if you were voting for the voting.
Mayor Swift.
No.
Councilmember Workman.
No.
Councilmember Blanchett.
No.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
You're up now, Cindy.
City of Riverview proposed ordinance number 737, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances for the City of Riverview by the repeal of Article 14, Prohibition of Marijuana Businesses and Establishments, of Chapter 14, Businesses, and the adoption of a new Article 14, Cannabis Businesses, to provide for the licensing and regulations by the city of a certain adult-use cannabis businesses operated in accordance with the state law and subject to restrictions on location pursuant to certain distance requirements and to the city's zoning district requirements.
Thank you very much. Any other business council wants to bring up at this point?
Your Honor.
Councilman Norton.
I have a question about the 1.47 millage increase for trash collection.
1.7.
Do you or the city manager know of that 1.47, how much of it was set aside for recycling?
I'll give the high-level answer, then you can be more specific. The 1.47 millage was for trash collection. I don't know if you could designate what part of that was for recycling. And I'll just say my opinion is that since we're not doing recycling, we're not recalling any part of that 1.47 mils. But if you want to give a better answer, Jeff.
Your Honor, it was my understanding that the recycling was going to be handled by grants from Eagle for both to offset the recycling costs as well as to offset the cost of the recycling containers, both for the recycling center and for the curbside, the totes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have a follow-up on that.
You get one.
I did not interpret it that way. Is there something that we can get forwarded later in the week on that millage increase? I guess I'll have to pull up the minutes from that. I thought it was a combination
No, and I remember that discussion specifically. That 1.47 mil was for trash collection. It's obviously if we implemented the program itself, the recycling would have been part of that budget, correct me if I'm wrong, it would have been part of that budget. But I don't think, we're still at a, I don't want to use the word deficit. We're missing out on $600,000 of profit from the landfill, which this was designed to make up. It wasn't to fund recycling, it's to make up for the lack of profit at the landfill. Is that a
Your Honor, I
easy,
think,
simple way to put it?
I think a better way to say would be reduce the amount transferred from the landfill to the general fund is a better way of explaining that 1.47 millage.
So there wasn't a .32 for recycling of that 174?
Your Honor, I'm not sure, I've not seen that. I mean, it was before me, before that was done at City Hall, so I mean, I can go back and look at prior city manager's notes and speak with the Budget and Finance Director, but...
I totally understand that happened before you. If you look at that and that was the case, can you shoot us an email and let us know?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other business council wants to bring up?
Your Honor,
Councilman Workman.
I would like to make a motion that the sale of marijuana go to a vote within the city.
Support.
There's a motion by Councilman Workman, supported by Councilwoman Blanchett. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
No.
Councilmember Norton.
No.
Councilmember O'Neill.
No.
Councilmember Robbins.
No.
Mayor Swift.
Yes. Any other business? Then I have one. I'd also like to make a motion to hold a public hearing on Monday, December 19th, 2022, at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers for the purpose of the public hearing to solicit input from the residents to get their opinion on the City of Riverview, should the City of Riverview opt in and allow the sale of recreational marijuana in the city limits. Is there support?
Support.
Your Honor, can I make a comment?
Discussion.
Are we going to go through again how wonderful marijuana is and how if you have a chip in your windshield, it'll fix that? My uncle who's dying. The point is this, are we going to go over the same stuff over and over again? Are we just wasting our time here? That's my question.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Ganaga.
we did have open discussions with the public multiple times. We met once every 2 weeks for the last 6 months, so that option has been.
But that wasn't a public hearing in a more
No, I know.
formal setting with being advertised.
I'm just letting you know. They did have an option to come.
Okay? Roll call.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
No.
Councilmember Norton.
I have to ask a question, I'm sorry. We're voting on a public hearing?
Yes.
Sure, I work for the public, let them come.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
No.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
So what was the result?
4-3.
Motion passed. Any other business council wants to bring up? Seeing none, I will look for a motion to adjourn by Councilwoman Blanchett.
Your Honor, can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
Well, we're past that, but go ahead.
Nope. I'll wait till next week.
Okay?
No, because I was going to question, I thought the vote was 5-2.
I thought it was 5-2 as well.
I'm sorry, it was 5-2.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
Still,
had it marked, but I went the other way. I'm
that
sorry.
works. Okay.
Your Honor, motion to adjourn, please.
Motion by Councilwoman Blanchett to adjourn. Is there any support?
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Let the record show we adjourned at 7:49.